So there is one very, very distinct theme about this episode of Mob Psycho, and that would be about characters feeling like they don't live up to the standards of either A, their older brother, or B, their younger brother. And once again, Mob Psycho diving straight into the psyche and characterization of many of our characters and kind of how they feel in everyday society when they're constantly being compared to others. And one of the main key spotlights of this episode is Mob's brother, Ritsu. So this is a Ritsu episode, just getting to see a lot of the episode focused on him and what is going on around him, how he views the world, how he views his brother. We get to get a little bit more insight with his character. So to dive straight into it, as we already know, we already have kind of a little bit of the rundown that Ritsu, he constantly wants to be a psychic. He wants to be able to use some form of powers like his brother. He constantly looks up to his brother, he cares for his brother, he loves his brother. And at the end of last week's episode, we found out that Ritsu got hurt by Mob in the past, and he doesn't blame Mob, he blames whatever was inside of Mob, whatever that creature is. So Ritsu, he cares about his brother, but also he's scared of whatever is inside of his brother. So it complicates the relationship just a little bit. But in this episode, we get to see how Ritsu views the world, how he, goes to school every day, and how everybody looks at him and how he views himself. So, as we all know by now, after viewing Ritsu's character, we know he's one of those characters that actually are way better than his brother when it comes to being able to intermingle with today's society. He's able to go to class, he's very popular, he's a part of the student council, he has high grades, he fits in, just overall he knows a lot, and he seems to be the complete opposite of Mob. The only thing that Mob really has going for him is his psychic abilities. Without that, he is nothing. That's what has been one of the main points of Mob Psycho 100 since this very point. And so getting to see Ritsu's perspective of how he views everything, he's like one of those brothers that is constantly used to compare with the older brother. For instance, Mob is always, his parents are always acting like, hey, Mob, you need to act more like your younger brother. And as we know, Ritsu always views his older brother on a pedestal. He's like, my brother is amazing. He's someone that can use psychic abilities. He's abnormal. He's someone that is way better and special compared to others. So it adds this interesting dynamic between the characters, and throughout this episode, we get to see Ritsu struggle to try to become more like his brother, for instance, being able to use psychic abilities. And eventually, at the end of the episode, we get to see some form of abilities unlock, and Ritsu actually is able to use some form of psychic abilities, which I'll get into that in a moment. But getting into some more of the characterization of him, he gets into a very complicated situation. He actually has a conversation with the student council president, and this student council president, he has kind of like a very similar design to Ritsu's character when it comes to his characterization. As we know, Ritsu is a character that's the younger brother in the family, and he looks up to his older brother, and he always thinks his brother is amazing, but his brother really, like I've already said, he's nothing 10 out of 10 special. All he has really going for him is his psychic abilities. Well, the student council president, he is the younger brother in the family, and he is the boy that's kind of the outcast. He is the one that is like Mob in Ritsu's family. He is the one that cannot live up to the expectations of his parents and how they want him to be just like his older brother. And we get to see a brief glimpse in this episode of how the student council president's compared to his older brother, how he can't get good grades and stuff like this, like he just is not comparable to his older brother. So I like this dynamic of this episode, the way it tried to show both of these characters and showing how they're very different and also very similar in the exact same way. I like that. I really like to see the different sides of the same coin, and that's what I really like about Mob Psycho so far, because one of the things that Mob Psycho really has going for it, and one is doing a great job with, is definitely showing some very interesting characterization and some very in-depth situations that are very realistic that happens in everyday society. So I love the way this episode was kind of being geared towards. So talking about the psychic abilities of Ritsu. So Ritsu, he unlocks some form of psychic ability. So he's actually able to see spirits now. He's actually able to see Dimple, which that is 10 out of 10 right there. I'm so glad Dimple is fucking alive. Oh my god. I was scared that Dimple was gone. I mean, I would have been kind of fine if he was gone, but at the same time, he was just a cool character and there's a lot of potential with him. And so seeing how he's actually alive at the end of the episode, he was sitting there at the gate of their house. I'm happy to see Dimple alive. He's not GG. He's not dead. I'm glad he is going to still be around. But there's one thing I want to point out now. We do know that Ritsu is unlocking abilities, because multiple episodes back when Dimple first moved in with Mob and he was staying with him, you had it to where Ritsu couldn't see Dimple at all. He could not see Dimple was there. So with this episode, we see that Ritsu, he's actually been able to unlock some form of powers. He's able to detect spirits. So now he has even more stuff going for him. He's pretty much a now new and improved version of Mob. And that's one of the things that I really like the way this is going. I wonder how Ritsu and Mob's relationship is going to be now that Ritsu has developed psychic abilities. Because, I mean, think about this. One of the things that Mob has over his brother is his psychic abilities. And now that Mob's brother has psychic abilities, he has the popularity, he's a part of the student council, he has good grades, he's like this very popular guy, he has everything that Mob doesn't, even psychic abilities. And even if he is not as strong as his brother, he has everything now. So it's kind of like saying that Mob is the outcast of the family, completely the outcast. He has nothing going for him now if his brother is near his level, or at the very least does now have psychic abilities. It's kind of sad, and I wonder what type of, characterization and development Ritsu and Mob is going to have in the future episodes of the series. So, with him unlocking abilities, my only theory I have of why he unlocked it was probably because of his intense emotions, because one of the things that we have noticed about Mob Psycho so far, I think all of us can kind of, guess that it has something to do with it, is when you have experienced intense emotions, you are able to use some form of psychic abilities. Because, I mean, look, Mob, he's able to use these psychic abilities, like really strong abilities, when he is emotionally unstable, or when he reaches his peak and he explodes. He's able to do some crazy shit with his psychic abilities. And you see it to where in this episode, Ritsu, he's contemplating different things. He's in this depressed mode because he realizes what he did to a student, and he framed him and got everybody to hate him. He realized how much in the wrong he was. He was disgusted and sickened with himself, and he's experiencing all these dark emotions, and then as he threw the spoon, eventually the spoon was curled up after the event. So we do know that most likely it has something to do with Ritsu's emotions and how he felt at that time as to what really unlocked his abilities. And maybe this might hint at exactly what is going on with Mob in the future of the series as well. So, talking about the scene with what Ritsu did to the student, that looks very much like Josuke. That scene reminded me a lot of the scene in One Punch Man. I'm probably not the only one that thought of this, but as an anime only that's new to Mob Psycho, when I saw that scene to where they were trying to frame a poor student that, is kind of the delinquent of the class, and he gets into a lot of problems, and as the viewer, we know that he was framed. We know he's innocent, but everybody else doesn't. And that scene reminded me so much. It reminded me so much of the One Punch Man scene, to where Saitama is getting questioned by all these heroes, all these civilians. Like, you've just done everything wrong. You've destroyed so much shit. You got so many people hurt or whatever. Everybody's yelling at Saitama, and that's exactly what this reminded me of. It reminded me of a very similar situation to that in One Punch Man, but it had a very different theme about it. With this, we get to see a different type of outcome of how someone would normally react if you were getting peer pressured by that many people. Because, I mean, let's just face the cold hard facts here. If you are a delinquent, okay, you're kind of like the outcast of the class, and that's kind of what he is. He's kind of the outcast. I mean, even though he kind of fits in some ways, he's still the outcast because he's a delinquent. Not many people probably want to hang around him because they think he might do something crazy, like maybe beat them up or something. So not many people will want to hang out around him. So when you have it like that, and he comes into class, he's just acting all fine, everything seems to be fine, he's having a good morning, everything seemed to be fine, it was just a good start to a day. He walks into class, everybody's giving these death stares, looking at him like he's a disgusting pervert. It's going to do something to you. You're going to be like, what the fuck is going on? Like, what did I do? And everybody's sitting there, blaming him that he stole these musical instruments from the girls, and then he was going to lick them and all that. It's definitely something that would make anyone upset and want to lash out in anger, regardless if you're guilty or not. You would want to lash out because you're like, who's the asshole that would want to frame me? Like, why would you do this? And then all of a sudden, how the student council is just, pulling out these different, recorders out, and they're like, oh, here you go, see, look, it's clear evidence that this man was doing something shady and wanted to start some problems. So, I mean, in that scene, when he started getting, like, nervous, scared, lashing out and all that, it was the traditional emotions I think normal people would actually experience if you were in that situation. I mean, you have to have a very strong will to overcome those type of emotions, but that was a general case of peer pressure, and also, in the exact same way, is the emotional stress if you're getting blamed for something. And I mean, how can you obviously, I guess, say that you're innocent when everybody already is damning you and saying that, oh no, you're completely wrong, you're a pervert, you stole these, and there's really no complete, way you can counteract these accusations because all of this evidence is right there on you when you know you're innocent. So it makes you feel bad. It makes you feel very, very bad for the character, knowing that right now his entire image, his entire reputation in the school, which was already low enough probably, it's even lower, and now there's no possibility that he could ever probably make friends. All his friends that he probably already had probably wants nothing to do with him, and then on top of that, if the teachers and people find out about it, there's a likely possibility he could be expelled as well and completely thrown out of school. So I mean, the entirety of his life was pretty much just ruined right there, and Ritsu was a part of this, and he actually realizes what was wrong and what he did after it, and I wonder how this is going to be settled. I mean, I'm willing to bet that maybe Ritsu might try to come to terms with what he did was wrong, and maybe he might set the record straight and say he was at, fault and he was responsible. That would add some very good dynamic to his layer of characterization if that is what goes on in the future of Mob Psycho. So I can't wait to see what happens next. You all have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.